September 10th, and Nancy and I are going to go down to Kennedy's mill and talk with Mrs. Kennedy and find out some history about the mill. And we're doing this in memory of my mom and dad, Tom and Helen McKinstry, who my dad run the mill the last time it was run, grinding cheese. So we'll see you at Kennedy's. Now shut it off.
That remains.
It is spring house.
That's the playhouse, man. Remember that? Is there something that is still there? No, that's all they do. One foundation. That was the chicken coop. They put the walls with newspapers, so we'd have clean walls. We had furniture in there that Mom would throw out that we could have. There was a walkway to the door where the door was. We had to be careful we didn't fall through. But that was the playhouse. Just right over the bank of the river down here. That's below the dam. That's where Nancy almost drowned. She fell in. She had a little short fish pole about this long. She was bending over the river fishing for sunfish and plop, in she went. There was some guys down here fishing, so they bailed her out. She went up to the house soaking wet, and I kept right on fishing. And I went to 10 different schools in 12 years, so we know we moved to the next school district all the time. And we lived, like, from the 1st of April to the 1st of April was the farm year. And so we always had to start a new school about a month before school was out. But for some reason or another, this place we have more memories of than of any other place that we ever lived at. Know what happened? I don't know, the kids found things to do on, with nothing. We went, if we found a nickel or somebody gave us a nickel, we would drive 5 miles to go get a candy bar. And that's no kidding. Across country we went to. Yeah, but the woods were so beautiful. So I think this is really great that a lot of people can enjoy this area. Oh, I enjoyed this here. And I remember there was a big rock down here somewhere where Corley and her girlfriend would sit on after if they wanted to get away from Mom or something. Let's see if we can find that rock. Was this the rock, Nancy? I think so. Where I used to come and sit, get away. Oh yes, but
the store. So come on in. We just had our. I was in town after I took my sister to the but then
this is my stepdaughter.
Don't know where I showed it to my stepson granddaughter here this summer, and I can't find it now.
You can't find it now.
That's a lovely picture of the old house. You girls would remember that.
Well, yeah.
But Dave's granddaughter hadn't seen it. One of them, there were two of them here. One of them had and the other hadn't. Well, we'll freeze if you remember. And they are both gone. There's the stump of one of them still standing. No, there, out there. But the things look so different
I
now.
know they do.
Our family picture was taken in front of the house.
The old house.
Yes.
Well,
That's why that family picture is so important
well,
to this history.
well, we'll have to see if we can't find it. I'll look for it, but I'm not sure that I can find it.
This isn't a line that shows where the house is, where you have your
No,
flowers planted,
you see,
is it?
Everything was on the east side of the house, really. There's remnants of my flower bed that I had over on that side. And those trees, those lilacs there were planted in line with that. I have some pictures of that. But see, this is all of my doing when I selected that site. Lloyd has never forgiven me for that. He thought it was a shame we didn't keep the site to the barn. And of course I was happy getting it back here because we just walk around here. When it was in full bloom this year, well, it was last year it bloomed until in September. This year it didn't bloom that long. But it was just one mass of color. What has happened this year with the profuse leaf growth, you see, our vision to the pond is obscured.
There's so much foliage.
There's so much foliage, and we're going to have to, I have a couple of nephews that will be here later on, and we're going to have to trim out a lot of this, with all your trimmed out, so that we have one of our bird houses more. That was a bluebird house for a while.
Did you have bluebirds?
What?
Did you have bluebirds?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We have 2 years we've had bluebirds in the bell tower.
Oh.
And that bell tower was over on the school. But we've had the tree swallows up there. And we have had the birds here. Now, all these are lilacs, white lilacs, and a very deep purple lilac. But we've lost our good view of the pond, and we often see as many as 100 duck in the fall.
Yeah.
But this has got to be trimmed out. Of course, we have planted some of the evergreens. So, and I have over here, I can forget more
The names of them.
you know what they are.
Yeah.
And look at it. When I want to remember, then so that I will, if the fall stays with us long enough, I will have some chrysanthemums. There were 10 bulbs or roots. There should have been 4 over there and 6 over here. I used to keep the tulip bed. There was the tulip and daffodil bed there, and then after they were gone, then I would put in the annual flowers, whatever I happened to have. So I'd have flowers out there all year, but I can no longer do this. So, and we did have, this was all fenced because we used to have calves running out all through. But a couple of years ago, we got all of the fencing down. So now the wrens, of course, they had their nests here before, and we've had the oriole feeders out here. We've had 2 oriole feeders. Yesterday we took them down and cleaned them up. They were taken over by the black bees. I don't know what they're called. And when the black bees came midsummer or later, then they would keep the orioles, try to keep the orioles and the hummers out of the field. So we discontinued them. Well, we might as well go in. If you think we didn't have rain that washed, oh God. Yes.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Stand by it closer. Stand closer to your foliage.
This is my twin sister.
Oh,
She does all of the work on this.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Now, you take that in the wintertime, or what do you do with it?
We take out a few slips, and by spring most of them will have died. Although we do renew it every spring. But
plants like that do the best outside. They do the best outside.
I think we did much. Mom did most of it.
But it's been getting smaller little in the garden. I just, But of course, this wasn't developed
When we it was all wild. I like this birdhouse on the branch coming down there. Very pretty. Very nice place for a birdhouse on that branch that's coming down.
Oh, the saddest thing this spring, for years we've had robins in here. And one morning after the storm, Lloyd came in the house and told me there's 2 dead robins, baby robins. They were feathered, getting along. And I ran out, and instead of 2, there were 5. The wind had blown the nest down. And then farther down by the granary, another nest had been blown down. We only found 2 dead robins too. But the birds were persistent. They rebuilt. And just a week or so ago, they were still feeding young. And this spring, it was a late spring, and when the robins first came in, it was difficult. So they came, and I saw through it that there was food out there. And to this day, of course, I haven't seen a robin this week. They were coming up here to see if there wasn't something they could take to their young.
Well, that's really late for them to be having babies.
Yes, I suppose the reason was this first hatch was entirely destroyed, and they were birds sizable. I could pick them up. I have a tomcat, but to my knowledge, but he does still, I didn't want him picking up the birds. But we had other cats come in that had taken care.
But I think robins do have 2 or 3 batches.
They'll have 2 at least every year. They really do. They believe in out around the granary on the other side of, the garage, on the other side of the garage, they've had this. And when the barn was standing, and that night, you might remember that, these swallows, barn swallows used to come in the barn. we've had, and I've still got pictures of it, as many as 100 swallows sitting on those wires in the fall. We'd have 12 nests in the barn.
Well,
They really, and
they
here,
took over the barn, in other words.
when the barn went down and their favorite places were gone, first they started building over that light, and they made it thick, and then it wasn't too nice for us when the little birds, so we discouraged that, and for 2 years they had a nest over that window there, and had young in there. On the other side of the house, the babies had a nest, and something took all of the birds out of the nest.
Oh.
But they were lousy. Just so many lice. I sprayed these babies. Well, let's go. But Ruth and I talk on, she lives in Amory now. We talk on the telephone every single day.
Wasn't that nice?
Left down. So her children are my grandchildren, right? So that's as far as. Well, let's go in and get information on you then.
So it's all written down.
And, but you see, as the years go on, I forget. And as Ruth said, just this week, she said, don't anyone come to me for information. She said, I can't remember any of it. So Ruth and I are only 7 years difference in our age. So J.D. took, he was married and had the 2 children, and they lived for a time in Montana and North Dakota. I've forgotten which came first. Ruth was born, I think, in Canada. But they were 10 years older than Ruth. Not 10 years, 7. Ruth's birthday is in, she was born in 1910, and I was born in 1903. So there's that much difference. Her birthday's in July and my birthday's in September, so it isn't quite that many years.
And that's your stepdaughter, right? That's your stepdaughter?
That's my stepson.
Wonderful.
But, yes, we have had such a good relationship.
That's good.
Before I knew Ruth, her father and mother had separated, although I knew her mother.
Mm-hmm.
But Ruth and I had been very good friends all through the years.
That's good.
And her children, and Matt Faye's children, they always called me Grandma.
And what year did you marry D.D. Kennedy?
What?
year did you marry D.D. Kennedy?
And that's another story. I had known him for 4 years. Before he had separated with his wife, although they weren't living together. We were married in 1940. We'd been good friends for some time. My husband died in 41. And I was left with a mill and a herd of cattle.
You lived here then?
What?
You lived here then?
Oh, we were here what was the name of the couple? I can't recall this minute. They worked here. When we were married, there was a couple that was working here.
Oh, someone else worked for you before my dad?
Yes. Yes. What was the name? I can't remember. It was a newlywed couple, and she was brought up in the neighborhood. Yes. I was trying to think if there was other help. You see, there was a lot of hired help from time to time because of the operation of the sawmill.
Yes. What year did you get married?
We were married in 1940, and my husband died in 41. So it was a tremendously difficult experience for me trying to with hired help, and then we tried renting it to operate the farm because I knew so little. I'd been brought up in a dairy farm over in Barron County, and I had taught school, but I had never tried, and we couldn't run the mill long because my husband was an excellent mechanic. He could keep the mill operating, but after he died, it was another thing. So I think the mill was built in about 1940, and I have that all in, if I can find this, that's all in this book, the date. I think it was in 1904 that the mill, at least the house, the big house was built about that time. And the Gumpers, who were in control at this time, lost their place through foreclosure, but they didn't lose it to D.D. because his brother and what was the attorney in Amory had come into possession of the mill, and it was through D.D.'s brother that he bought their place in, I think, about 1914, somewhere around there.
Well, your husband had died not too long before we moved into the house.
I think that's right.
Because when we moved into the house,
you see, this other couple, did you folks come in April?
probably,
This other couple left, and I assume that probably it was in years, but he died in April of 1941, and this other couple did farm for a while.
when we moved into the house, we were a family of 7, 5 children and Mom and Dad, and you had a room upstairs, and the bedroom was left as it was. We didn't use that bedroom.
Listen, maybe you will verify this. I've always said it was the coldest house in Polk.
That's the truth.
I always said,
That's the
I
truth.
came here in November with light clothing, and I had the worst case of chilblains in the world because I wasn't used to that. It was a cold house. I used to, my geraniums from the kitchen, and they loved the light they got in the kitchen. But at night, every night, I would have to move them and set them on the reservoir so that they wouldn't freeze. Things froze.
Well, I think all of us slept in what was the living room. Had
Yeah.
double beds in the living room.
Yeah.
And we also all had the measles when we lived at Kennedy's.
And didn't you have a teacher that
We had a teacher that stayed with us, and she had a room upstairs, but she ate her meals with us.
Yes. Yes, I know she.
That was Miss Claude, Mrs.
I didn't
Campbell,
know.
and Mrs. McKinsey, she is now. But she got married at Christmas time. We were just talking about that down in the park. How when she left and came back from vacation at Christmas time, we had papered her walls, baby pictures. Do you remember that?
No,
I said it's funny we didn't get evicted for doing such a thing.
with all of these things coming at one time, I had a difficult time remembering.
I'm sure.
One thing, D.D. was no dairyman. He was a lumberman. And, but the summer before we were married, he had gone to Barron and bought 4 nice young Holstein heifers. They were bred. And that's what I built the herd on. He had brown splits, and but he was learning the dairying end of it. I built the herd and one of the heifers freshened before we went to Madison, because he was assemblyman then. Before we went to Madison, one of the heifers freshened. We had hired help. And got in the manger. If you remember, there were cement mangers. She got in the manger when she was calving and couldn't get out. And of course, nobody thought of going down to look at her, and she died. But the 3 that lived, I went on to build a herd of 25 good milk cows. And I milked cows. In fact, we finally bought, we started in with, I think, 13 or 14 milk cows, and I took over. And I don't suppose there were too many cows when your dad was doing the milking, was there? I don't know.
Well, I'm sure Mom helped in the barn because she always helped milk cows.
Well,
And we went to get the cows, Nancy and I. We were talking about how many times it was raining when we had to go get the cows, lightning and thundering, and we were scared to death.
did you ever, in the fall, go up on that hill in the west, as that was after the hay had been taken off, and look over east and see all of those oak colors, the colors of the... I used to get cows here so much of the time. And there would be those beautiful, all the way from the orange, deep orange, to the beautiful brown. And I was always thrilled about going after the cows and looking across the valley.
This was the most memorable place to live, the most beautiful place to live, and we're so happy that it's going to be put to such good use.
You know, that was one thing I loved the place. I thought it was the most beautiful place. And of course, I've said so many times, there was no place in Polk County that I would trade this area for. And then the water coming down, or the connecting link, that was one thing. Dee, and although most people called him Manly, but I always called him Dee. He and I agreed perfectly that it was too beautiful a place to be kept for just one people, that it ought to be so that many people could enjoy it. And I never forgot that. That always stayed with me. The fact that it ought to be enjoyed by many people, although Dee was at times willing to have given it up because there were a lot of problems in maintaining the old mill. And that was one thing. The mill had always been water driven until Dee had built it so they could use steam. No, it was just the other way. It was steam. The big pipe. But he fixed it up, the water wheel, so that it could be water driven. And it was under his guidance, and I've forgotten what year it was. They helped build the flume down by the road so the water could be regulated, closed off and on. There's a lot of, if I can find some of that material, there's a lot of interesting history to that.
I'm sure.
But much of it, you see, his dying early in our marriage meant that many of these things I didn't learn direct from him. But we had both agreed, and that's why different people from time to time wanted to buy section 5 acres or something along the river, and that's true across the road. Part of that is very beautiful. There was a hill, Faye's wife, they lived in Minneapolis, or at, where's it called, Minneapolis, but down there. They would come out for weekends and all, and we'd picnic up on that elevation with the water down below. It was very nice. What about swimming?
What about swimming? We were down there and we said, would you believe this is where about 20, 30 people came to swim every night after chores?
And sometimes there would be big flocks of them.
Really?
Well, I helped in the haying, and there was no bathroom in the house, no running water in the house if we carried it in. But I helped, and after the kids left, and sometimes it wasn't very early, they'd stay down swimming. The dog and I put on my bathing suit, and the dog and I would go down across the road into the swimming hole. And the dog didn't care about swimming much. He'd sit on the bank, and he'd stay there until I got ready. And I said then, I wouldn't change this for anybody's bathroom in Polk County. I got over that. I can tell you. But at least it was a wonderful swimming hole.
Oh, it sure was. It wasn't very big, but
What?
it wasn't very big.
No. Did you ever go on this side of the, what we call the flume? That part, it was a little deeper there, but the water wasn't as clear. How could that water stay as clear as it did with that many people in it?
I don't know. Oh, that was fun though. We all learned how to swim when we lived there.
I thought that, and I used to say, of course my family didn't think much of my bathroom down there, but the dog, and his name was called Dan too, he was the second Dan I had. But he would never leave me, and I'd hike up the road here in my swimming suit, come to the house. Of course it wasn't, the old house was a lot nearer the road than this is. But it was a wonderful swimming pool.
Oh, it sure was.
I bet no youngsters ever enjoyed it more than you folks.
No,
because you
we're sure nobody else that ever lived here ever enjoyed it as much as we did. And of course we were 4 girls and 1 boy, so all the boys in the neighborhood came here to swim. Remember how they dug their buggies out of keeping and started running their buggies with horses and hitched them down there in front of the mill?
Ruth has always maintained that she was so glad that I kept the place so that her children and grandchildren had a chance
To see that.
and now say his youngest daughter, that Dee Dee's granddaughter, they live now out in Colorado, but they were down in one of the southern states bordering California. See, all of these names fit my mouth when I want to remember. But she was so glad that he had got to, he was on the place a couple of times when they came up. They live now in Colorado, but they had lived down Tucson. They were living near Tucson, and Kathleen lived in Tucson. Well, there's a lot of history. How would you like to drink a cup of coffee? I don't have much in the way of bakery goods, but we could have a cup of coffee and a cookie. So you will take that one.
Sure.
And I've had the most beautiful coffee maker I ever seen.
The one that painted that picture?
Yes.
But that's not so old a picture.
What?
That's not so long since that one was painted.
No, over there, my niece's husband carved that picture from a photograph.
Really? Yeah. Oh, my.
He carved it from a photograph.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Carol did this, and she got the book turned around just that you ordinarily would have had. I'm just going to look for a minute.